everyone and welcome to my studio, the Pottery Corner down on the south coast of England near Chichester, and welcome to another Glaze Kiln fire opening. We're still working our way through the glazing, although you will see that I now have some empty shelves, so we are getting there. So without further ado, we'll crack on. The kiln is practically cold. It's down to ambient room temperature of 18 degrees. So I'll just flick the kiln power off. So I don't need my gloves today. And obviously just a tiny one, as you know. I don't really need to tell you, I have had a very sneaky peek, but only at the top shelf. So here we go. The first piece on the top shelf is yet another large flat item that my students love to give me as, you know, things that make me lose sleep at night when they make large flat items. Now this is Emma's platter with raised handles, and it is covered in silicon sand because, as you know, I fire large flat things on silicon sand in the kiln. And it acts like ball bearings just to let the piece move so that it doesn't crack. Now this combination Emma has written down for me, and the blue is Amaco's Celadon Bloom, and you can actually see that there are some sort of crystal formations on this glaze where there's sort of whiter spots, and then the buff colour is Amaco's Honeycomb, and then the rim is done in both, so she's layered the two glazes to make the third colour glaze. Now Emma has put texture on here, which I hope you can see. This is from Anaglypta paper. So I did a Top Tip Tuesday video on you know, basically how to get sort of free or nearly free texture, and you can order Anaglypta wallpaper samples online relatively cheaply, if not free, or sometimes you have to pay for the postage, and they make very nice texture underneath your pieces, so that's rather lovely. As I say, I'm glad it's through the kiln in one piece, so yes, Emma, that's nice, and the glaze combination is good, and as I say, they're both Amaco glazes, Amaco Honeycomb and Amaco Celadon Bloom, so that would look lovely with cheese on it. I love cheese. Love, love, love cheese. Right, let's pop that down gently. Get the sand off my hands. And as you can see from the kiln shelf, this is how much silicon sand it had to sit on because it's large and it's flat. So I'll just pop that onto midge. And that all gets recycled, so I just pop it back in the bag and we use it next time. Okay, next shelf. This is, I think, whose is that? Jessies, yes. Okay, so this is a Huntley & Noble mould plate, which has been hand built from a slab, which has been textured with icicles, which is rather lovely actually. And the glaze is Amaco's Deep Sea, and it is quite a lovely, rich, deep blue. It's kind of it's not as dark as Storm. It's just a little bit lighter, and it's called Deep Sea. And again, that has been fired on silicon sand because it is large and it is flat. So to save your pieces warping and cracking, it really is good. Now I'll talk about those in a minute. So again, there's another shelf covered in silicon sand, which I will pop on the top of poor old Midge. There you are. Right, okay, so bottom shelf, and in fact there's only a half shelf round a large piece in the bottom of this kiln, but I'll take the props out so that we don't damage anything. Okay, right, this is lovely, whoever's this is. I think this might be Rachel's. Yep, this is yours, Rachel. So this is again another Huntley & Noble plate mould, and she's used one of the wooden, like an Indian wooden textile stamp used for printing ink, but actually they work very well on clay, and you can often pick them up at boot fairs and antique fairs and things like that, and actually they're really nice because the texture is lovely and deep on them. I can't tell you what that combination is, although I do know that's tourmaline on the top of it, but I couldn't tell you what the bottom one was. But rather nice, and I love just the plainness of the motif. Rather than covering it in texture, she's just used one item to decorate the plate, and that works really well. So that's lovely, and I think that's the last of those, so I shall be able to get the girls to come and collect those after we are let out from lockdown. We're in England's second lockdown still. We're managing. I'm painting the studio floor. That's always a good job to get done. Right, okay. I've done a few glaze test tiles because I've changed the glaze storage in the studio upstairs. So I was just doing a few test tiles. That one is Amaco's Ice. This one is Amaco's Lustrous Jade. And this one, believe it or not, is Amaco's Cherry Blossom. Now, I use Cherry Blossom as a transparent because Cherry Blossom never comes out even vaguely pink in my kiln. So if you're using Amaco Cherry Blossom, don't expect it to be pink. Right, that's that. And I'll just take the half shelf out. So obviously there are no classes at the moment because we are still in lockdown, which is disappointing. I've got a prop stuck on the back of there. Get rid of that. But you know, it's a necessary thing at the moment, isn't it? Oh no, that's interesting. Okay, so you'll remember from the last couple of videos that I was moaning about Amaco's Flambe, which I don't quite know why, but it never seemed to come out quite right for me. Now this is 4 very thick coats, and when I mean thick coats, I mean like butter, almost like spreading butter on a test tile and then letting it dry between. So this is 4 coats of very, very thick Amaco Flambe, and actually it has more or less come up to the colour that it says on the tin. It's not quite as purple, it's a little bit more blue. Actually, it's a really, really lovely glaze. The texture and the sort of speckling is really nice. My problem with this is A, you have to spread it on like butter, and B, it's a very expensive glaze. So if you're spreading 4 coats like butter on an item, that's going to be a very expensive piece to glaze. So if you're using Amaco Flambe, I would say use it as a decorative detail. So in other words, a band or a highlight or something, because, you know, by the time you've got 4 coats on to get it to the colour you want, you're using an awful lot of glaze, and therefore, you know, I think it's almost twice the price of the other glazes, so it's an expensive one. So yeah, eventually we got there with the test tile, but I must admit that when I was spreading it on, I did think to myself, crikey, this is an awful lot of glaze to use. Right, next, Becca, this is one of your set of 4. That's rather nice. Look at that one. That's pretty. I think that's tourmaline. Looks like tourmaline to me. Oh no, tell a lie. It's Blue Lagoon. It's Amaco's Blue Lagoon. Very nice. And again, she's used the pastry made roller, which is the cookie rollers that we use upstairs, and they have this lovely deep texture, and that's the leaf plate one that the leaf pattern you'll have seen before. So that's lovely, and goes with the set. And actually, I think there is actually one more of the Platter Girls things to do. So I was being a bit previous, saying they were all done. Right, another half shell, prop on the floor. Right, what have we got in here? This is another Christmas platter. That's nice. Whose is that? That's yours, Rachel, again. So that is Huntley & Noble oval form, pastry made Christmas roller, and that is Amaco's Rainforest. So that lovely green. It's a really good doer, Amaco's Rainforest. That's a Celadon glaze. Works really well over texture. Beautiful green, lovely and shiny. Right, there's a blue rutile test tile in there. As I say, I'm just doing some doubles of what I've got upstairs. And that one is Wasabi. So that one is Amaco's Wasabi, which I don't use very much, but actually it's quite a nice mid-green. Personally, I like the true Celadon better than the wasabi, so I tend to use the true Celadon more. Right, last thing in here, apart from Testiles, is this, and this is Louise's large poppy head, which she has glazed in Amaco's Downpour, and then used some copper oxide on the beading, on the spines, to highlight them a little bit. Personally, when we make these craft crank poppies, I prefer to oxide them because I think that they look more natural in the garden than when they are glazed. And either this glaze doesn't suit this clay, or there isn't enough glaze on it, but jury's out on this one for me. It takes such a long time to make a piece like this that actually to put a glaze on it and then look at it afterwards and it's fine. It's quite pretty. I suspect it will grow on me when it sits upstairs in the studio. I like the spines. I like the copper on the spines because I suspect that you can see that it's kind of just turned it slightly green. And maybe if there'd been a little bit more copper on there, that probably would have been better. But I'm not sure that I'm a fan of the blue. But it's a very nice piece and it's very large and it will go out in the garden without any problems. But for me personally, I would say these need to be oxided, and I think glazing them is, I think it takes something away from them. But I'm sure that Louise will be pleased with that. I'm sorry, Louise, to say that about your piece because I know you'll be watching. But personally, I'm not overly fond of the glaze on a large piece like that. But anyway, it's come safely through the kiln, so that's good. The other thing that's in this kiln I've done some Testiles of the studio slips. So these have now got a transparent glaze over the top, so they're finished, yellow high fire slip. And I've just put the names on the back of them so that we know what they are when we're using the slips in the studio. And also for me, when I'm doing my mono printing, I can see how it comes out. And we were talking about the high fire violet and pink last time, and actually by adding more high fire pink pigment to this, the pink colour has come out. So obviously on some of the paler colours we need a little bit more colour. So that's our lot today. Now, student of the week. Well, now that's a tricky one really. I think I'm going to say it's really hard because some of these items are quite easy to make and some of them are more difficult to make. And on that basis, I am going to give it to Emma for her platter because she's thought about the design with the anaglypta papers and put this kind of sort of Moroccan-y type stamp on it. And